This is going to be a little bit of an unusual episode for us given the circumstances. It's just some truly unprecedented times we're all dealing with. First and foremost, my heart goes out to all of you dentists out there and your families. I hope everyone is taking the necessary steps needed to stay safe amongst this virus. I know none of us planned for something like this happen. This is all now the card we're dealt. So I thought it was important to break our usual segment of bringing on practice owners to have a discussion about how we can deal with this. We're all dealing with a lot of emotions, a lot of fear and anger and things that are coming up. And I want to kind of reframe the discussion about how we can use this time as an opportunity for growth, opportunity for growth in ourselves and in for our practices. Um, so I have a guest with me here today. Before I bring her on, a couple more things. Share practices will be going on as normal through all of this. We'll still have our main 3 episodes a week. We'll continue next week with our bringing on our anonymous practice owners. You can't shut us down. We're not going anywhere. So please use this time to catch up on old episodes you haven't listened to, listen to new ones. If you need any support, please reach out to us. We're here for you. Couple quick shout outs before I bring on our guest. Shout out Peyton Keller, made a over 100-page recap of every episode of Share Praxis ever recorded. He wins Super Guest of the Lifetime. So shout out Peyton. Also great dude, met him at Voices Dentistry. Awesome guy. And also Danielle Davis for opening up her startup course to all of us for free out of the goodness of our heart. I know George is very anti-startups, so hopefully he didn't scare away all that startup part of our audience. But if there are any more out there that he didn't scare, then please look at our course. A lot of amazing content in there. Okay, so now on to our guest. So you guys know Share Praxis, we're a very family operation. You guys have heard now Murray Lowe, who's been on Richard's show a bunch in these last couple weeks. So we're big into family here. So in that vein, I'd like to announce my wife, Ellen Broen. Ellen, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks for being here. So a little about Ellen before I let her tell you about herself. So Ellen is a professional certified life coach, which is the second highest level of accreditation in all of the coaching profession. She works with leaders and entrepreneurs of all fields, including several dentists and aspiring dentists. She's also an opera singer and a tiny house aficionado.
A wannabe. I want to have a tiny house like yesterday, but for now I just watch every YouTube video under the sun about them.
I can attest to that. So Ellen, thanks for coming on. In this moments of crisis, I knew you were a perfect person to have on. We always had plans of you getting on, but for some reason, this seemed like for me the best time. When you really shine because you're in the forefront of this. You're a coach, and you're talking to clients who are dealing with a lot of those emotions and everything that comes up with it, and you're getting them to get elevation on all of that and use this as a growth opportunity for them. So talk to us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how you're helping your clients through this difficult time.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, I want to give Matt away on his joke. For those of you who don't know, he is a big Bachelor fan. Every single episode of The Bachelor, if someone doesn't say family is so important to me, then take a shot because it is in every episode. So just a little trade secret on the Matt Moreno front.
Wow. Outing me right away.
Oh yeah.
Louise.
But yeah, so what I do and what I'm trained to do is walking people through their fear and their reservations and their self-sabotage and circumstances to have their dreams come true, have their life really, really work on all fronts. So I'm trained to be in fear and to choose what I want to do anyway, despite the fear. And that's what my clients can rely on me for. So it's been a really critical time for my private practice and everyone in my network for how to be with this fear and how to create the declared future, the intended future that we want out of the next 8 weeks, potentially more, of this crisis. So I find that a lot of my clients are really experiencing tons and tons of fear, tons and tons of anger, sadness, like just absolute uncertainty about what's next. And moving them through that and having them relate to this as an opportunity and a gift and a place for them to grow has been every conversation of my professional life this past week. So I'm really happy to bring it here and offer it to you guys.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Like as I said and you said, a lot of emotions are coming up. Have you found any kind of best practices as far as getting clients to not just compartmentalize that emotion and get over it, but deal with it healthfully and then kind of move forward?
There are a couple things that I've offered to clients throughout this week that aren't actually new practices that I've given them. They're all stuff that we've worked through anyway, but most of it has been what I call emotions on purpose, where it's like we actually set aside some time to vent with our support structures in place, our friends and family. Maybe you have a coach, maybe you have a therapist. It doesn't actually matter who it is or how you do it. Sometimes, Matt, I know you're a big golfer, so like whacking some balls,
Mm-hmm.
Hitting some batting cages, like taking a pillow and hitting the bed. Like it really doesn't matter how you express it, but taking intentional time to vent or express the feelings, I think, is one of the most important things. But on the back end of that, it's not to just let that bleed over everything. Like, I think some of the hardest, like slippery slopes, I would say, is when people get really in touch with their emotions, is that we can just get like swept up in it. And it's like, I'm just going to complain or be afraid all day, or all evening or all morning. And then it's just this big cloud that follows us around. So I actually schedule it. I have my clients say, okay, I'm going to take a couple of hours to get that need met and really focus my emotions outwardly, like let it out and get supported so that it's not just spinning in your head, and then put an end to it and like move on to the thing that you're really committed to doing and using your time for.
Yeah, I really like that because by setting a time, a start date, a start time, and an end time, you've given yourself that space to expel those emotions. But then by the end of that time, you also know, okay, now it's time to move on. Like
Mm-hmm.
these emotions are there, but I've expelled them, and now I can see this for what it is, which is kind of what I want to focus the bulk of our talk today on is what opportunity this does bring.
Yeah.
Because for me, what I see is it provides a lot of space and time for things that we put on the back burner, things, projects we have, goals we have, to-do list items that you just can't fit in your daily basis as a dentist, just by being a dentist. So talk a little bit about how we can now see this as an opportunity at our hands.
I mean, you laid the foundation really well because um, in my line of work, every breakdown is an opportunity for a breakthrough. And I don't relate to this any differently for our society, for our world. And granted, I don't want to take away the impact of the very serious nature of this breakdown in our professional lives, in our personal lives, and across the board. But regardless, like from if we are able to actually reframe in our lives when circumstances get in our way, when a bank doesn't approve our loan for buying the practice of our dreams, when things don't go right, like who will we be in the face of it anyway? And to me, this is no different because it's a massive breakdown for so many people and like earning money or schooling or whatever may be. And we actually all have a choice, like we all get to be leaders. And I know Matt is really passionate about this community, and we talk about you guys all the time, and how we really relate to this listening audience and the Shared Practices Facebook group and everybody as really leaders in the industry. So the invitation that I see for everybody is to own the breakdown and the breakthrough if possible, like really be that voice of vision and calmness and what's next for your employees, for your patients, for your families, for your fellow peers, like really being that support system, but also the voice of, hey, it's all going to be okay, and we can use this to learn something.
Absolutely. And I want to circle back on one thing you said in that you mentioned how we be. Now, some of our audience might not know kind of what you're pointing to there. So why don't you
Mm-hmm.
go just briefly over kind of the term being and how you use it in your coaching?
Yeah. So my training is as an ontological coach, which basically is the study of being. So what's different between consultants and coaches, if you're trained as such, is that consultants are often really focused on what you do, right? Like, what's the next thing to do? How do I accomplish this thing? Give me the, step 1, 2, 3. And ontological coaches, or in my profession, the International Coach Federation, we are unified as a profession in this kind of framework. Who you be is, and how you show up is actually probably 90% of the equation of your life. Not just professionally, but everywhere. Like how we relate to and show up in our practices, or our school life, or our relationships, whether romantic or not, our spirituality, our well-being. Like there's so many, like every area of our life, we carry a lot of stories and a lot of markers for our identity and attitudes, mindsets that we bring to each area. And some of them are empowered and some of them are disempowered. So it's just really what I work with people on is getting really clear about who they're being about their life and each of these areas, and what's possible if they bring their fully expressed essence of who they are to everywhere in their life, what's possible.
I want to give the listeners an example of how that has played out in my own career as a dentist and leader. My first team meeting, I worked on with my coach and had everything that I wanted to say ready. All my talking points, I had it all printed out, told it to all of them, and got in there, and the meeting just went terribly. Like completely fell on my face, just a disaster. And like looking back on it, it was related to my being, because I was wishy-washy, uncertain, fearful, afraid of criticism. And I brought that to the meeting, and that was picked up on. Whereas now, as I'm more focused on, bringing the being of team and leader and community, I can be saying the same words as I was saying in that past meeting, but it's taken in a much different lens by my team. So I think that's, for the layperson, maybe he doesn't have this training or that the knowledge of the differences in these things. It's really a cool thing to hear, and encourage everyone to kind of start noticing that and start practicing that.
Yeah, totally.
So you are a life coach. You work primarily from home. So I want to talk a little strategies here, because I do my coaching on Fridays from home. So I'm a little, voiced in it. We were talking to a lot of dentists who have never worked from home a day in their life. How do you survive that? What are some good tips and tricks that you can, thrive in the being at home?
So there are a couple tips that I have right off the bat, and then there's a really big one I want to offer. The couple tips are: try not to do your work from bed. So checking emails and just communicating with your office managers, like any of that work stuff. I would really encourage you to get out of bed in the morning and put some real clothes on.
Maybe shower.
Yeah. Please shower. Just put yourself together like you were going to go to work anyway, is a really practical kind of small tip that I have for anybody working from home who's not used to working from home. The second thing is to really think about, this kind of goes into my bigger point that I really would design a day in the life schedule for yourself. I call it my ideal schedule. So I have been working on this for years. So trust me when I say I have changed this and reinvented this and turned it upside down 17,000 times, and Matt can testify to it. But writing out an actual, how you want your life to look, including, and I say this in a really specific order. So if you're a note taker, feel free to jot this down, but in the order of self priorities, meaning, what do I need? What are foundational well-being needs that I have? Career needs, what kind of things do I need to be checking off the list in terms of growing or maintaining my practice or the pursuit of my practice, then scheduling those in, then scheduling in quality time with your spouse or partner, whatever may be the situation. and then family and friends. So highest priority being what would source me today? What's going to help me? Because I don't know if you guys are like me, but sometimes I'll roll out of bed and immediately go into the career side of things. I'll like check my email, I'll start working, and like I haven't even brushed my teeth, and I'm just like all of a sudden plummeting my whole brain into work. And I think it's a very, very powerful foundation to set if you actually do that workout first thing, or if you actually go take a walk outside, or, eat breakfast and, just take care of yourself. So forming the ideal schedule is a really, really powerful thing that may feel like you're on training wheels at first, of like, oh, I don't really know how to like write how a day I want in the life to go. And to that, I just say, like, experiment, try it out for a couple of days, see how it goes. If things take longer or less long than you thought that they would take, then change the schedule and just try it out. But structure is a really powerful thing. And the second piece I would say is, again, just like the emotions conversation, calling upon your support, which from the outside, in my perspective, you guys have a very, very powerful support structure available to you with shared practices, not only just like listening to these podcasts to really offer you more and more growth edges for your practice, but the people in the Facebook group, like getting on the phone, schedule like a Zoom call at noon on, every other day or every day to just talk about like, hey, what's everybody doing with your practices these days? Or like, what are you guys doing? Or how are you, handling pay for your employees, or whatever, like, or for your dental students, like talking about like, hey, how can we keep studying for the boards? Like whatever it is, just calling upon a community while we're all kind of in isolation right now will make a big difference.
Yeah, I think I've had more Zoom calls with my friends than I ever have before, and I'm on day 2 now. So it's going to be a big time necessity. Just like, we are isolated in our homes, most of us, but you're not isolated in the world. You have that support structure. We have everyone in the group. You have your friends from school and home and family, and this is the time to build those relationships and lean on that support system, because you're not in this all alone. Like it's one thing about this virus is everyone's dealing with the same thing. There's not a human on earth who hasn't been financially or family or affected by this somehow. So we're all in this together, and don't keep yourself on an island and shut yourself up and fall into the vices that are easy to kind of get into.
Yeah. And I thought of a third one. So the other thing that I would say, and this kind of from a zoomed out perspective in my work with my clients, like I work inside of projects. And the reason I work inside of and by that I just mean goals. Like what is the thing you actually want to accomplish or create? What's the result you want? And so part of that is not just like to, push results or be focused on the end goal, but actually because we can declare how we're committed to showing up or what we're committed to creating, rather than just kind of going day to day. Like if we go day by day, who knows how you may feel, who knows what circumstances show up, and who knows what result then you'll create. So within a larger scale with my clients, I'm always focusing on what's the higher commitment. And I see this as no different for kind of like a mini project for these next 2 months, 3 months, however long this goes. Like if you were to look at 3, 4, 5 areas of your life where you want to put some focus on, to elevate, to expand, to take it to the next level, to accomplish a certain thing, writing those goals down and creating, again, that ideal schedule in line with that higher level commitment, I'd say would make a huge impact for those of you not used to this. The areas that I cover projects for my clients always include something in the realm of, career, some sort of like self-expression, whether that's a creative project or a hobby or spirituality or something like that, well-being and health, and then relationships and finances. So if you have goals where maybe you haven't really dug through that credit card, account in a while, or maybe you haven't looked through your finances in a bit, and it's kind of something where it's like, I never have time to do that. or, do a workout series from, pull out, what's that, P90X or something.
Yeah,
And like,
there you go.
like take something, and make something out of it. Make a higher level commitment rather than just kind of taking it a day at a time really helps.
Yeah, there definitely is that opportunity for like a new project in their life, a new couple, projects or goals that they now have time for and they can
Yeah.
fit in that they've always kind of pushed aside.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's important too to focus that even in the goals you have already had, say for your career, say money wise or whatever it is, finding a practice, you know, those deadlines may change on those things, and that's fine. Like that's the point is that all these things are outside your control right now. So if you need to modify your plans, basically, I don't want it to get to the point where people are afraid to set goals and with deadlines because they're uncertain. You
Hmm.
know, circumstances change and deadlines get moved, but it shouldn't prevent you from, you know, setting the goals, writing them down, and actually taking steps to follow through with them.
Yeah, I mean that is probably something I coach on more than anything. It's like the fine line between declaring the goal and like being willing to do whatever it takes to create it. But when things change or circumstances come up or you fail, like actually being willing to have the breakthrough that generates like makes a difference in your life. We're at some people. I know I've gone through phases like this where if I fail enough times or if, the deadline gets bumped enough times, then eventually I'm just going to stop setting deadlines. I'm just going to be like, clearly this is not meant to be, or this is too hard, or maybe I should lower my standards or something like that. So I'm just going to not make a goal in this thing. And the opportunity to push through that, little voice in your head that wants you to stop is so powerful, to still keep declaring anyway and looking at how you can have this actually serve you.
I feel like there's like multiple levels of goal setters.
Yeah.
There's people who don't set any goals.
Hmm.
There's the people who set like private goals where they'll just keep it with themselves
Yeah.
so no one else knows. There's
Yeah.
not much pressure.
Yeah.
And then there's the people who really like leverage the power of setting powerful goals and committing to them and involving a support structure in them, whether that be a coach like you or
Hmm.
friends, family, anyone, and then really going for that with deadlines, with commitment. And those are the people who see the highest results, are
Yeah.
that top.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of coach a client through maybe that guilt that comes up with not hitting a goal by a deadline, or the internal pressure that they feel by setting a goal with deadlines?
Well, you're speaking to a recovering perfectionist, so
That's true.
I'm very familiar with this journey personally, and it's also what I coach my clients on every day. So, I mean, I could spend hours talking about this. I'm going to really try to not do that right now. In terms of like what would make the difference for you guys in this moment, I think there's a hell of a lot of compassion that you guys have access to and can practice actively, like really putting down the high stakes pressure that I'm sure a lot of you guys carry because you're all high achievers. You're all going after, something that only a small percentage of your profession really take on. So I'm sure I'm not talking to people far away from how I relate to these things, but being willing to practice compassion with yourself and with the world while also, again, it goes back to like handling the emotions. Like if you're carrying around this resentment or this, withdrawal or resignation or sadness with you about that project, that's going to stay until you let it out. So if you're just completely pissed off that your practice is closed right now and you're consumed with that anger but not actually letting it out, that's going to affect what action you take. So again, it kind of comes back to really taking care of your needs and getting honest with yourself about where you're at, and then like having compassion for you being a human and like having feelings and needing to take a pause and like get that out. And then it's just like as simple as a choice that you could actually access a refresh button on how you relate to your goals at any moment. It's just a lot of us try to skip over this first step of handling the emotions and like really like taking care of ourselves before we hit that reset button, and we're like banging our heads against the wall like trying to think like have it go differently. But
Mm-hmm.
it actually, if we put it down, then I think from that refreshed mind and refreshed body, we can actually see something different. Maybe there's a new possibility in front of you. Maybe there's a new way ahead of you that you could try that you probably wouldn't have if you were stayed in the kind of resigned way of being.
Absolutely. Do you have any strategies as far as what people could turn to in kind of getting over those emotions? I know we mentioned some anger on purpose things you could do, but any kind of like maybe a written exercise or something that they could, you know, put all those feelings out and now, get move on.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to put a personal plug in here that I'm planning to open up a bunch of free sessions for people. If they've never worked with a coach, or if you have worked with a coach, it doesn't matter. I am totally open to getting on the phone with any listeners here. And I'm going to be posting it on my socials as well, that I'm open for just free coaching at this point. An hour of time to really vent and get clear about what's next for you. So there's that structure. I'm totally open to being a support system for you guys.
Nice.
And the second, like, as far as like a written exercise, I'm actually going to steal this from a book that we're going to recommend later, like in a couple of minutes, I'm sure. The book is called Dark Side of the Light Chasers. It's a really powerful book, and there's an exercise in it that was so powerful to me and really resonates for this circumstance. So the exercise is kind of like writing down, and I'm just going to do this in the context of like this virus and right now, like writing down all of the negative interpretations or stories that are coming up for you. Like, this is going to ruin my practice. All my patients are going to stop coming. Like, my employees are, blah, 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 whatever you're making this mean, or the interpretation that you're carrying about it, write as many of them down, maybe 3 to 5 different stories or something. And then kind of turn to a new sheet of paper and write down what positive, or I don't want to be like just think positive kind of thing, but like what are the interpretations that this could be if we zoomed out like 10 years from now and we were looking at this like, oh my gosh, this was the turning point for me as a leader, as a owner, as a student, as a girlfriend, as a whatever. What could this be a gift for? Like, what's the interpretation that would actually empower you to move forward and to have it go the way you want it to? I think that exercise is a really powerful one. It's really simple, but it gets you honest about where you're at, and then it actually gets you back in choosing how you want to interpret this, how you want to frame it.
Yeah, it's a total mind reframer, and like gets you to see the other side of the coin, without you even noticing you're doing it.
Yeah.
And then you're seeing it a whole different way, and it's not as burdensome and as like done to me as it currently can probably feel.
Yeah. I mean, basically, we're just a bunch of like bumbling beings on this planet making up stories about what we think life means or what this is all about. So if you're going to make up stories and interpretations about everything anyway, might as well choose something that actually does some good for you in the world, rather than one that has you, feel disempowered or disconnected or whatever.
Yeah, that's something I've never even made the connection to myself. I've known that we've kind of made interpretations and wrote stories, and I've always tried to like just not do that. But you're saying like it's just a natural thing. Why not just leverage it for our greater good? And you're not fighting a natural human. It's a human thing to do, is to interpret things, and we have our own lenses, so you can totally use it to your benefit.
Exactly.
Interesting. You should never tell me that before.
Holding out gold on you.
For real. That's not okay. So I want to get a couple more books from you. You mentioned The Dark Side of Light Chasers, which I've also read on your recommendation, and it's excellent. Really would recommend it. I kind of like recommending books to our audience that are a little different than a lot of the ones you hear. A lot of the Think and Grow Rich,
John Maxwell.
E-Myth. Yeah, John Maxwell, like the normal things you'll see on Facebook. I like to get a little you and I call it like coachy coach, a little bit more like mindset and like personal growth rather than always just kind of the business stuff.
Yeah.
So what other books do you feel that would our listeners would benefit from?
Yeah, well, this is from my own context of if you guys were using this opportunity, these next couple of months to leverage for personal growth and leadership growth, like what books would I recommend to that person? And so Dark Side of the Light Chasers is definitely one of them. Another one is called Getting Real by Susan Campbell. There are a couple books called Getting Real, so make sure you get the one by Susan Campbell. Both of these two are very personal in nature, very like deep diving, introspective, like really looking at who you know yourself to be and who you actually are, kind of thing. What are the stories you've made up about yourself, and how you can actually really get connected with your authentic self and the authentic selves of people around you. Like really elevate your relationships. And it doesn't even matter about like whether it's romantic or professional or friends, like people to people. How can you actually bring your whole self to the way you communicate and the way you think? Those two books are really cool looks at that. And then in terms of leadership, a book that's kind of off the beaten track that I got a lot out of is called The Last Word on Power. It's really speaking to the high level leader in you. It really calls forth like the leader's mindset is the ceiling for any business. And it's super powerful, gives a lot of cool exercises to do, and is a challenging read in terms of like really calling forth your leadership in a different way. So those three books would definitely recommend for these next couple months.
Nice. That last one's definitely a big play on the what got you here won't get you there.
Yeah.
It's getting you to like totally reframe your leader mindset and starting you to think differently if you want different results.
Yeah.
I really like that one. It's really cool. And all of these three are heavy into the exercises in the book. So I encourage you as you're going through them and reading them, do the exercises. Is how you get the most out of all these. It's one thing to skim and read them, but if you really like take the time and write the exercise down, you just, at least for myself, I get so much more out of these books.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want everyone to know in how to deal with these kind of tough times?
Remembering that you don't have to go this alone. You have support everywhere, and your framework, your mindset, your lens through this is your own to choose. So remembering that fear is normal, the sadness is normal, the anger is normal, all of these feelings coming up have every right to be there and to be expressed. And there are going to be a lot of people in the world that choose to let that be the next 8 weeks of their life. You're going to be surrounded by a lot of fear from family, from friends, from yourself, all the time. And everyone's going to be kind of in their ebbs and flows at different periods. So just remember to really own how you want this to go, what kind of support you need, taking care of yourself, giving yourself that compassion, reaching out to me for whatever support you want from a coaching call, getting support from a therapist if they're in your wheelhouse, and leaning on your peers. I think this community has an opportunity to be something different for each other and in the world through this. Because I know Matt has shared with me that there's a lot of dental podcasts going on about like all the how-tos, right? Like how to manage paying your employees at this point, and how to manage the bills. Do you take out a line of credit? Do you lean on your savings? Like what do we do? And there's a lot of merit to those conversations. But like we said earlier, how you're showing up is as important, if not more, than what decisions you end up making, because you may discover some more possible decisions or possible answers or solutions that could be in front of you, that right in front of your face, that you don't even see because you're just so afraid of doing it wrong or whatever you're afraid of. So if you're having trouble reframing, just lean back into that compassion, pick up one of these books, reach out to me or Matt or George and your peers in the group, and we're all going to be okay.
We're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Ellen. This was awesome. I think you gave everyone ways to deal with this and ways to reframe it in your mind and kind of ways to leverage it too. So thank you so much for being on.
Yeah.
we always had plans to get you on. We didn't imagine it'd be something like this.
No.
So, I think it worked out well. So you mentioned a couple of times that people can contact you for anything they need or free coaching calls. So how do they get in touch with you?
If you just send an email, I think is the simplest way. It's Broen. I have a different last name than my dear beloved husband here. So that's B as in boy, ROEN as in Nancy. So eebroen@gmail.com. Just shoot me an email. We can find a time to connect, and I'm here to support.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this little bit of a different episode. Thank you, Ellen, for being on.
Of course.
We will be back with our normal programming. So we will talk to you guys all next week.
Thanks.